Hi, Team Healthy. I've been waiting for this time. I got up a little early this morning and had a chance to go over all my questions that you all have sent in to. It's like, well, is it 11 o'clock yet Central Time? And so here we are, we're ready to start and go. You know that I look forward to this time every week. I hope you do too. Hey, look, I noticed we're getting a lot of. I mentioned we're getting a lot of new people that are coming in on our live feed, and then also who watch on tape delayed. In fact, the vast majority of people watch this on tape delayed, and you're coming from everywhere. I just heard from somebody, for example, from Rio and Croatia and India and places like that. And I just am so grateful that we get to be a worldwide community. And I noticed that in so many of the comments that people leave here, they talk about, okay, thank you, Dr. C, and community. Okay. Uh, as you're able to encourage and show empathy with each other, it makes a difference. So many times when you're dealing with these narcissistic individuals, one of the things they like to do is isolate you or let you know how you're completely off base. It's nice to have a group of people that says, "Oh no, you're not isolated. There are people in the same boat with you. You're not alone. You're not making this up." And as we're able to come together with our joint efforts, then I'm hoping that the sense of resolve that you can bring with you is just going to be that much more powerful. So there is strength in numbers. There's strength in community. By the way, I've mentioned this multiple times before in some of our other live feeds. Every now and then we get a troller that shows up on our, particularly on our live chat, and they'll say some cranky kind of things. And if you're one of those trollers, understand that for a while you might be able to get on there, but we're going to block you. But the rest of you, I'm so glad you're there. Okay, so let's just kind of keep it clean and upbeat here. Okay, now we're talking today. Whenever you send the questions in, I start looking for any kind of themes that might pop out. And there's one really, really large theme that has come through in this particular week. And it's about narcissists and their not so hidden mean streak. And I want us to take a look at this because so many of you are having questions about basically why are they so mean? Why do they have to persist in their harsh and condescending and disruptive kind of behaviors? And then whenever you try to talk with them about it, it's like, okay, well, that just gives me an excuse to keep doing it. Why do they do this? Yeah, I just want to give a couple of introductory remarks here. Research does show that when a person is treated poorly in their personal life, they're far more inclined to treat other people poorly. And so when somebody comes along with their meanness and harshness, there's a high probability that they have already been on the receiving end of it in their own personal lives. But instead of dealing with it in a constructive way, they flip it around and they turn it on to you. Uh, Research also shows that threats to your self-esteem are directly tied to the proclivity towards aggressive anger. Research also shows that narcissists are soothed when they can identify other people who are beneath them. And so there are these elements on the inside of that narcissist. And I want you to notice, and we're going to see this through our questions that we're going to go through today. Narcissists are constantly outwardly focused when it comes to finding solutions for their problems. And when I say outwardly focused, the notion is, what are you people out there doing to make me in here feel better? And they're wanting to put the responsibility for their own emotional well-being into the hands of anybody and everybody that happens to be in front of them. Now, narcissists will absolutely balk to hear me say this, but it's, in my mind, it's 100% true. Narcissists are the chronic codependent. They feed off of other individuals, and if you give them what they want, they're going to be happy. We call it narcissistic supply. If you don't, they strike out, and so they don't have that interior strength to draw from. That's part of the codependency. They don't have that interior contemplative mindset that causes them to slow down and think things through. It's constantly putting things out there. What have you done lately? What are you going to do next? And how's this going to impact me? And if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to make you pay. I'll pound you into submission. And that's that mean streak that we're going to be seeing here. Now, I wanted to open with this first question because it kind of captures what so many of you are dealing with, and it kind of sets up our entire Q&A time here together today. This person sends in the question: is the narcissist consciously aware of what they're doing and how damaging it is? I'm struggling to understand if it was just malicious toward me, or simply the only way he knows how to interact with other humans. Did he ever love me genuinely, or is he just truly not capable of love, but did his best? Okay, so here we have somebody that's like, do they know what they're doing? Do they understand that? And then the last portion, I'm going to start with this. Did he ever love me genuinely, or is he not capable of that? A while back, probably roughly a year ago, I came out with a video, and it's actually one of my favorites, that says a new way of defining narcissism. And the gist of it is, the new way to define narcissism, according to Dr. Les Carter, is it's the absence of love. Narcissists don't know how to love. Love is not something that has been built into them. Now, they may have had parents that will say, I love you, or they may have people in their adult life who they think that they have a love relationship with, but it's not sustained. It's not something that has penetrated. Love has elements of things like patience and kindness and tolerance and decency and consideration, conscientiousness. And narcissists, it's like, I don't know what that stuff means. I can't go there. Early in a narcissist's life, instead of feeling and then living into a truly loving style of engagement with people, narcissists had a sense of self protection that has taken over their personality, and the self protection overrides their capacity for love. And so, and then to make things worse, in part of their self protection, they develop the strategy that says, well, I protect me by striking you. You know, the old saying, the best defense is a good offense. And so they use defense mechanisms like projection and denial, things like that. They deny their own problem because they're protecting themselves. They see in you what they can't come to terms with on the inside. So this person says, is the narcissist consciously aware of what they're doing? And at one level, their meanness, their incalcitrance, their difficulty is so deeply embedded. It goes all the way back into their toddler years or grade school years, where the necessary skills that would be required for the development of love just were not developed. It's what I refer to as the training of emotional incompetence. They just don't have that inner strength. They don't have that inner strategy to deal well. And with that not being developed, they just do what little bitty children on the playground do. You strike me, I strike you back. And if they can make themselves appear to be better than, it's like, okay, problem solved. And so when you wonder, did I do this to this person, or are they just predisposed? They're predisposed, and it is damaging. Now, I'm going to go ahead and segue off of this particular question and go to the next one, because it starts getting into the question of choice. Okay. This next person asked the question, why doesn't a narcissist look more closely at conflicts that arise? Mine wants to hurry up and put it behind us. Is it because they don't have the insight or capacity to understand their part of the conflict, or that they just simply can't tolerate admitting they did something wrong? Okay. So you have somebody that it's like, can't you just slow down and look at yourself? That's what this person is asking. Why do they not have the ability when we have a conflict to say, okay, let's look? Part of the foundation of narcissism, and this is enormous, is they're shame based. And they may have been on the receiving end of lots of shame. There may have been a lot of anger and criticism in their home, where there's kind of that completely worthless question that they heard all the time. What's wrong with you? I say it's a worthless question. You've never had a good answer to that question ever in the history of humanity. What's wrong with you? Well, okay, now that you ask, well, here I've got about 5 things I can focus on. Okay, I'm chasing a rabbit. That's a dumb question. Sorry. Um, why don't they look more closely at conflicts? The reason is because shame is constantly inside that narcissist subconscious mind. It's like, if I acknowledge that I have a problem, this might not go too well for me. I mean, can you see a 6-year-old thinking that way? Yeah. Or if I get caught making a blunder, or doing something I wasn't supposed to do, oh, someone's going to come down hard on my case. And as that little 6-year-old kid, they just immediately associate flaws or blunders or miscalculations or just simply differences with shame. And they know that judgment is just a natural part of the world in front of them. It's like, well, for example, if a kid just says, well, I don't like this, rather than the authority sitting down saying, you've mentioned this several times before, why don't we talk about that, and let's figure out why that is that you're saying this to me. That's a non-shame based way of communication. Instead, though, that little bitty kid, if they say, I don't like this, many times the other person will respond with a reaction like, well, you're just going to have to learn to like it, or knock it off. You're always pushing against me and I can't stand this, or that's not right. And that's the shame that I'm talking about. And so narcissists grow up living with a fear of being judged, of being told that they're unruly or disruptive. And so instead of them slowing down, she asked the question, why can't they ponder conflicts in a very helpful or insightful kind of way? Instead of slowing down and saying, well, let's think about it, they learn very quickly to be very reactive, and that's that codependency. They're very reactive, and so when you come along, and it's like, well, I'm very willing to talk things through. Like, you're down on my case, aren't you? Why are you saying this to me? What are you going to do to me next? And it's not you; it's their deep habit on the inside. Even just examining the potential for a problem, not even admitting it, scares them. And so when we talk about narcissists having a mean streak and talk about them being very inappropriate in conflict, where they just come on in a real harsh way, there's so much going on beneath the surface that's been there for decades, depending on the age of the person. And they can't, when this person says, can they just simply not tolerate admitting that they did something wrong? And the answer is right. They can't do that. It's just something that scares the living daylights out of them. It's like, oh, if, I've seen other people get shamed for their mistakes. I'm going to get shamed for my mistakes, and this is not going to go well at all. So know that when they show no insight with you, this has been going on a long time. The good news is, if you're an insightful person, you would be the kind of person that can say, well, I can do this. Whereas narcissist is like, I don't share that skill. And so that's a major distinction that you'll have to factor in as you try to figure out how you're going to engage with that narcissist, particularly when they come on with their harshness. Their capacity for insight, their capacity for helpful discussions never was developed. Okay. Um, Now, this next person, I've heard variations of this one a lot. This next person asked the question, If a narcissist's biggest fear is abandonment, why do they treat you so bad that you want to leave them? It's like, okay, you're just using raw logic there, aren't you, when you ask this question? Yeah, they don't, and sure enough, this when they say the biggest fear is abandonment. When we talk about narcissistic supply, narcissists want you to say, "Hey, you're terrific," or "You're smartest," or "Yes, I will acquiesce to you," or "Oh, great one, nobody ever comes up with skills such as you." They want you to feed them. That's the supply, and in doing so, they can walk away thinking, "Well, I was just accepted. Now I'm an insider because you just told me how great I am." But then when you come along and it's like, "I don't agree with you." And I'd like to talk about a different way of looking at things. They don't interpret that as just face value what it is. They interpret it as you're not giving me my supply. You're not telling me I'm okay. You're rejecting me, aren't you? And it's like, no, all I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to sift out healthy from unhealthy or appropriate from inappropriate or blending and not blending. And they're so inclined to think, but I've got to have my fix. And this is not part of my fix. You've got to give me my sense of well-being. That they do have that fear of abandonment, and so why do they treat you so bad that that you just eventually want to leave? Okay, there's another element that goes along with the narcissist and their mean streak, and that is it's the absence of future thinking. If, for example, if I'm angry with someone, I don't rise up with a whole lot of anger, maybe when I was younger and all, but right now it's like, yeah, I'm going to devote my personal attention elsewhere, emotional energy elsewhere. But let's suppose I am angry. I'd like to think that I have the capacity to say, before I do something with this anger that I'm feeling on the inside, where's this headed? And where's this going to take me? And what's this going to do to the future, whether it's 5 minutes from now or 2 years from now, of the relationship that I happen to be in? That's future thinking. Healthy and insightful people are conscientious enough to know that there's much more going on than just what's right there in the moment. Narcissists are right there in the moment, period. They don't think about what's going on in the future. They're typically incapable of putting the immediate circumstances into the context of a broader parameter. And so if something goes wrong, then they just respond like a little dysregulated kid in the now with no particular future thought, no particular concern about where this is going. And so they think that they're softening their fears by creating pain in you, and they don't think, is that a good strategy? Has that worked well before? Do I like it when other people do that to me? What's going to be the net result of my relationship with you if I keep doing that? No, all they're thinking is, well, if you're going to abandon me, well, the reason is because you're stupid. Or if you're going to abandon me, well, then you were no good anyway, and I didn't want you. And so they fear abandonment, but when they sense that it might come, they go ahead and try to have the preemptive strike so that they don't hurt so much because they don't have that capacity to reason things through on any kind of full level. And so it's so important for you because the questions that we have here, they're a compliment to you because you're saying, in essence, hey, look, there's a way that we can do this. And there are strategies that we can use and maintain that will carry us through our difficult or differences or difficulties. Let's do that. And you're bringing healthy ingredients to the equation. Good for you. You have to remind yourself, though, when that narcissist goes into their anger and their petulance and their argumentative style and their condemnation of you, it's not about you. It's about their lack of internal strength. It's about their lack of emotional competence. And you don't want to allow them to take over the decisions about who you are. That's something you need to learn how to come to terms with in a separate kind of way. Now, this next question, this person asked, how can a non-narcissistic person, I hope that's the vast majority of the people that we have here, how can a non-narcissistic person find any agreement with a narcissist on major things when silly things can't be agreed upon? So you have this person's like, well, I want to sit down and talk with this person about, the broader issue of who we are and where we're going, and what works well for us and what does not, and how our engagement with each other can fit into a larger strategy. And you can see that this might be a relationship, whether it's in the work setting or inside your extended family or the person you live with or your kids or your friends. There's just this natural thing that says, well, um, I'd like to talk on that broad and more in-depth level, but we can't even agree on whether we should have cereal or waffles for breakfast. And if we're going to leave at 5 minutes till 7 or 10 minutes till 7. We can't even come to terms on with those little bitty things. How in the world are we going to come to terms with the big stuff? Now, I went back and reminded myself of that. I'm not going to be able to do the poetic justice of this. You remember the one, the statement that says something to the effect that you have small actions lead to habits. Habits lead to character, and then character leads to destiny. Are you familiar with that one? When you have good character, which becomes your destiny, it's what you're known for. It starts with the small actions that you have, and then those actions become habits. I go back to that childishness that is at the base of the mean and caustic narcissist. They're still back there in that 6-year-old mode. And it's like, if I don't get my way, I'm going to throw a tantrum, or I'm going to pout, or I'm going to yell, or I'm going to blame someone else or accuse. I'm going to be impossible. It's like, oh, okay. 6-year-olds, they do that because they're still learning. You're 48 years old. Cut it out. It's like, no, I'm still that 6-year-old kid. And so how can a non-narcissistic person find agreement with a narcissist on major things when they can't find agreement on the small things? The answer is narcissists can't even do it on the small things. They're still stuck at that very early stage of development. And so one of the things that I talk with people about is adjusting your expectations accordingly. There's a form of relationship that we have empathy, which is wonderful, of course. But then in the best form, that empathy can actually lead to even more. And it's what we call the relationship style of immersion. And when we talk about being immersed with one another, and these are in our closest relationships, it's like, I want to lay my ego aside long enough to find out who you are and then become very tuned into you, and to be very cognizant of what makes you tick and why you feel the way you do, and what does work, and what your unique set of circumstances might be. And you go into that person's space with them. And then in the ideal sense, that person says, well, why don't we make this mutually rewarding? I'd like to do the same in reverse. Now just pause on that, okay? Percentage wise, how many relationships could be described like that? And the answer is, well, not nearly enough. Let's just say that. And so when we talk about narcissists, they're so down on the functional end of it. What's the function? What are you going to do for me next? They talk to you about the rules and regulations. Then when you say, well, let's go into more of a value-based style of communication. Let's do the empathy. Let's do the immersion with each other. It's like, what? Uh, you didn't get me. You forgot to buy the coffee at the grocery store when you said you wouldn't. Oh yeah, I forgot. And then they blow up at that, and they can't deal with it, and every little thing ticks them off. Uh, it, the problem is not you. The problem is you're trying to bring a skill set that has never been developed on the inside of that person. Therefore, you have to adjust your expectations just like you would if you're dealing with a little kid. And it's like, well, can I bring that person up in their level of thinking. And it's the old saying, they have to want it first. Typically, they bring you down more than you bring them up, and that's the way it is. But adjust your expectations as you know what is really going on here. Now, another person asked a question, and this is about covert narcissists. This person says, can a covert narcissist flip into malignant narcissism if you do something to make them feel betrayed? And the answer is, oh, yeah. Just because a person is covert doesn't mean that they don't have that hard and mean streak. And when we talk about malignant narcissism, we're talking about people that are just so persistently caustic and harsh and uncaring and condescending, and they just don't have much of a conscience at all. And so some of them are just so out there that you can spot them pretty quickly. Other times, though, when we talk about the covert narcissist, those individuals can give the appearance at times of being normal or reasonable or capable, when in fact they're suppressing on purpose, I might add, some of their bitterness or contempt or condescension toward others. You just don't see it right away. And so this person says, well, what if you've done something that makes them feel betrayed? Let's say that you show loyalty to someone else, or you pursue an initiative that's not their initiative, and they think, oh no, you can't do this to me. Look at what you're doing to make my life miserable. They take on the victim's mindset instead of them having that capacity to think things through from the inside out. They can come on with a vengeance. It's like, it is now my job to teach you a lesson. You don't jack with me. You don't mess with me. And so they can come on in a real strong kind of way to an exaggerated kind of way. That's the malignant narcissism. And just because they're not necessarily that way all the time doesn't mean that they don't have the capacity. In fact, quite frankly, a lot of malignant narcissists start off with the covert style. So just be very aware of that. So they're just good at covering it sometimes. And then when the time comes for them to teach you that lesson, here comes the meanness, here comes that malignancy. And that's, it's like they can't contain it. That's why I say they have a not so hidden mean streak. It's like, oh, maybe I can cover it for a while, but you start messing with me, you're going to find out who you're dealing with, and it's not going to turn out good for you. I'm sad to say that. Okay. Another person, and this one goes to the question of choice. Narcissists, this person writes, narcissists seem aware of what is socially acceptable. Publicly, they can seem okay, but meanness comes out in private much more. Do they not know? All right there. You're that do they not know what this that the way you phrase that question tells me I don't want it to be that way. They have this public persona where they can appear to be pretty normal, and folks will say, "Oh, what a nice person," but then privately, it's like, "Wow, this is bad," and this person is treating me like dirt. Do they not understand? And by virtue of the fact that publicly they can clean up their act, even though privately they're mean to you, that is just, as far as I'm concerned, proof positive. This is choice. This is more than just raw impulse. I mean, yes, there is a lot of raw impulse, like that little 6-year-old kid, but there's choice going on here. And narcissists, as they age, they can begin to refine their skills, if we can call it that, their meanness. It's like, well, I can only cash in so many chips, and then after a while, maybe people get tired of me and they'll abandon me, like that other question. And so for a while, they can give the appearance of being that really nice person. In fact, some of them, it's like, I never even saw this coming, but they've learned that if they suppress certain feelings for a while, that they'll be acceptable. And then behind the scenes, they just can't do it forever. And familiarity breeds contempt. Another old phrase. They're with you, and it's like, I'm not putting that mask on with you. I don't care what you think and say. And so they're harsh and they're mean, and so it can come off in a really awful kind of way. And so do they not know? And the answer is, oh, yes, they know. They know that if they're with this group, they can be one way. If they're that group, they're going to be another way. And so it's a show. And again, this goes back to my opening comments. They're very externally based in the way that they engage with you. They don't have that interior, and so it's all about the appearance and making themselves look right and okay. Okay. All right. Now, this next question, I want you to hear the agony that's in this one because, and I strongly suspect that this person represents quite a number of you where you've come from. Okay. This person says the main question that everybody asks me is, why did I let this cancerous relationship last so long? Why did I forgive so many times when evil was repeated? Why did I go back to him so many times after ugly, monstrous behaviors? Okay. And so you can just hear that person thinking, what is going on here? What does this say about me? And they have that agony and they have that agitation, and so why did I do that? Why did I get sucked in knowing that person was going to be mean and they kept doing it, and yet I kept going back to the table one more time thinking, well, maybe it's going to be different from here on out. When you are the kind of person that's been treated meanly and yet you stay in there too long, there can be multiple factors for you to have to come to terms with. One is, are you too idealistic? For example, you have your own ideals that you want to live into. Good for you, because we need to have, Alfred Adler had what he called the teleological pull. It refers to your future, that future thinking. We need to have ideals in our future and goals and aspirations that we aim for. And so we need to have those kind of things that prompt us to think about our now in relation to what's going to happen from here on out. Viktor Frankl refers to it as the search for meaning. We need to have a sense of meaning that we go with. But in those ideals and in that search for meaning, you can be idealistic to the point where realism doesn't kick in quite as much. It could be that this person, why did I keep going back? Maybe they're too willing to trust. Maybe they are a naturally loyal person to a fault. And then it leads begs the question, well, does it lead you to a place of neediness to where, no, I need people to like me and I need people to think well of me, even to the point to where you find yourself getting caught up in duty and obligation that is not good for you. One of the things that I talk to you about is I talk about the need for therapy. Sometimes you can be carrying these kinds of ingredients on the inside of you, and it can just keep you stuck in the maladaptive way of dealing with a person who's just naturally mean and harsh and caustic. And therapy can help you sift these kinds of things out so that you can have a real good understanding of what your vulnerabilities are, so that they don't work against you. Now, whenever these kinds of elements are on the inside of you, the narcissist can think, okay, I can use this to my advantage. And they will definitely pick up on your needs or your ideals or your vulnerabilities, and they'll just sling you around and twist you like a pretzel, anything to keep their agenda going. And so love and kindness and helpfulness and encouragement and forgiveness, those are wonderful characteristics until they're not, if you understand what I'm saying. When you have a narcissist that says, well, what I'll do is I will use that to my advantage all day long. Then we go to, well, I still want to be a loving and kind and a person like that with boundaries. And so a person like this is going to need to understand what boundaries is all about. Hey, by the way, just as a quick aside, earlier before the session started, I noticed somebody was asking about my Ready, Set, Connect online course that talks about healthy relationship skills. And then my other one that I like so much is we have Free to Be, and then This Is Me, about establishing good boundaries. It's good for you to educate yourself about what good connection skills do and do not consist of, what boundaries do and do not consist of. And so when you have the educational possibilities to examine yourself, take advantage of that, okay? And just make sure that you know who you are and where you're going, okay? Because they will use your goodness against you. It's not that you're that means there's something wrong with you. It just means that you need to learn how to stand firmly and have a belief in yourself, even when the narcissist does not believe in you or just squashes you. Okay, speaking of loyalty and all of this next question. I struggle with knowing what kind of support is appropriate to expect from a partner. By asking my by asking my partner for support when I'm emotionally struggling with something, is that me being narcissistic? No, it's normal for you to have the desire to be supported. I mean, they can tell you that's stupid, but it's not. It's kind of what relationships are all about: mutual regard, mutual encouragement. And then this person goes on to say, not only does he not support me, he either gets mad or goes silent whenever I ask for it. Am I just looking for him to validate me because I asked for help when I'm struggling with something? And the answer is yes. You're asking him to validate you. Now, the theme to that question is that a bad thing? And saying no. We all have needs and desires and preferences, and so if I'm going to be, well, this is your living partner. If I'm going to be living with someone, it's like, well, I certainly didn't sign up for this so they can come slap me in the face and insult me all the time. No, you do it because, well, I like being around people that know how to love, and I'll love them back. And I support you, you support me. I give you encouragement. There's a mutuality that's there. So the implication here is that this narcissistic person is more or less implying there's something defective about you. If you want my support, there's something defective when you ask me to say nice things. And just mark it down. When the narcissist comes at you with that mindset, you are being gaslit deluxe. Gaslighting is a euphemism for trying to create confusion about what your reality is. That it's like, no, this is not right, and you're inappropriate. It's like none of what you're asking for, encouragement or support or mutual regard, validation, that's not wrong. The narcissist makes it wrong because they're not committed to love. They're committed to their own self-preservation and their own self-protection, which is where that meanness and that insensitivity comes from. And you're over there having to figure out, they want you to think that there's something defective about you. And the answer is no. This just goes with that pattern of the mean streak. And do not let them gaslight you to the point to where you think, well, I guess I must be the problem because I like support and I like affirmation. Not a bad thing. Okay, another question, and we're going to begin wrapping here. This person asked, can a narcissist be paranoid? Let's make it a little stronger. Is a narcissist paranoid? And the answer is yeah. Keep in mind from the very beginning of our session here today, I mentioned that narcissists are externally based. They want to make sure that other people give them what they want so that they can feel okay, which is why they're mean when you don't give it to them, which is why they're caustic and harsh and punitive. But basically, it comes from that vigilance that they carry in the relationship with them. Are you going to say nice things to me? Are you going to show your loyalty? Are you going to tell me I'm okay? And so that's the foundation for paranoia. And paranoia, it's like, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if you're going to do me right. I don't know if this is going to work out well for me. And so, can a narcissist be paranoid? The answer is, oh yeah, they already are. It's part of the defining feature. They're very defensive. They're very cautious, and they don't trust. That's what paranoia is. And so, paranoia is built into the narcissistic pattern. And so, if you understand that, which is of course fear-based, fear drives anger. Fear drives the meanness. It's like, I'm going to get to you before you get to me, and it's their way of trying to create a preemptive strike, and it can come out in a very unruly kind of way. Okay, now one last question. This person asks, this is a pragmatic question. Is it too aggressive to ask my narcissistic sister, the family know-it-all, why should I care about what you think? Is that too aggressive for me to ask? And my response is, I'll give you a pass on that. Not necessarily, although you can ask it in a caustic kind of way. But why should I care what you think? Actually, I think you might want to reframe this question. Is it profitable for me to ask my sister, why should I care what you think? And when you ask that, is it profitable? No. When when you speak these kind of words of confrontation to a narcissist, hoping it's going to prompt some introspection, it's like you're barking up the wrong tree with the wrong person. They don't go there. So, as we acknowledge that narcissists have not developed the skill of introspection, they're very externally based. They don't have future thinking. They don't learn how to put their own mannerisms into the fuller context of who they are, where they've come from, who you are, and what the circumstance is there. They don't have any of that. It leaves you realizing, okay, I'm going to have to individualize my efforts to be a healthy person. This person doesn't know how to do it. They're not going to join me. I wish they could, but they won't. I'm going to have to find people that are willing to go in that space with me, and it's not going to include this person, which is why guys like me will say, and I know you can't go no contact with all of them, but the less intimate engagement you have with these people, the better. You want to preserve your best features for people that know what to do with it. Okay. Real quickly before we completely wrap, I've been mentioning now in my videos that I have a podcast. It's starting to build some pretty strong momentum, and so if that's not something you've looked into, do so. And basically, all you have to do is go to where your podcasts are. And just put in my name, Surviving Narcissism, it'll pop up. And then, be aware of that. It allows me to, I'm starting to conduct interviews with people in my field. And I'm also bringing some of my own personal thoughts. It's a mixture of topics. And also, if you haven't looked into that, do that. Obviously, we have our courses and the other things. And if you need the help, then we have the links to our online counseling. So just make sure you avail yourself to the resources. Okay. All right, guys, this has been, to me, a very seminal kind of discussion. I so appreciate the questions that you send in. So if you didn't put your questions over here in the live chat, for those of you who are doing that, put your questions below in the comments section. I will see them. And I'm just going to show you. See all of that? Those are my notes that I take. And so I don't get to all of them because I have so much stuff that you all send in, but I pay attention to what you're saying. And I pay attention to what you're asking about. And so even if I don't address your question immediately, you're in my head. We are a community, and I want to see myself as being attuned to you, just as I hope that you can be attuned to some of the things that I'm talking with you about, and it can be mutually stimulating. Okay. I so appreciate Team Healthy. And you know that I like this time of the week as much as any other hour in my work week here. So just come back next time and spread the news. And I will see you then. And I hope between now and our next time of conversing with each other, it goes well with you. I want you to find peace. Bye.